We're here live at the Georgia World Congress Center for the 38th Annual Atlanta International Auto Show. My name is Brandon Adams. We got the former Falcon Chuck Smith on hand here as well for AJC, Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Great to be in downtown Atlanta. Already had a chance to see a few folks today. Looking forward to seeing a whole lot more as we get ready for an unbelievable experience that's actually ongoing. Gates are open now, doors are open. Folks are striding inside to see the latest. More than 24 manufacturers represented. All the latest top-of-the-line models for the new year, but also some business to take care of for us, Chuck Smith. A lot to break down from the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis this week. Falcons GM Thomas Dimitroff, Dan Quinn speaking a lot. Not always on the same page about what they were saying, mind you, but a lot of the directions that Atlanta is going to go in, heading towards the draft, heading towards free agency. I do believe that what we saw at the Combine gives us a little bit of a clue of that.
Well, I definitely think so, because when you look at it, listen, when you know what the Falcons need, you look at their positions that you might be surprised, the importance of it. One we'll talk about here in the second, quarterback, but this is the time. This is where championship teams are built, making the right decisions, and here's where the evaluation comes in, so you can make an educated decision. That's why the NFL Combine is going to be huge for the Atlanta Falcons this year.
So, as you said before, we're going to get a lot into what happened in the Combine, what happened in the draft. And a lot of this is going to be very serious. Some of the things that Dimitroff said this week about, for instance, Austin Hooper, Devondre Campbell, these are very important topics. Let me start with something that I don't think is all that important, but I think it's kind of fun, mostly because of the reaction it's going to engender from a lot of our audience. Daniel Jeremiah from the NFL Network has suggested that one of the potential landing spots for now former Georgia quarterback Jake Fromm could be the Atlanta Falcons. Chuck, let me read this to you, then we'll kind of get into this for a second. What Jeremiah says is, I look at a team like the Atlanta Falcons and try to get somebody to sit behind Matt Ryan for a couple of years, maybe with a payoff down the road. I would imagine in that state, it would be a popular pick. Let me tell you how wrong Daniel Jeremiah is. And I say this is someone who loves Jake Fromm. I'm a huge Jake Fromm fan, love Jake Fromm. And for the most part, Georgia fans do wish the Falcons would just draft more UGA players. Whether that's a fair criticism or not, the average Georgia fan just wishes more UGA.
Listen, especially the ones that deserve to be drafted.
Yeah, exactly.
They missed on some of them.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, they missed on some.
That's exactly right. Not just random run-of-the-mill player,
right,
but guy that went on to have a great career somewhere else. That's very well said. However, for the most part, when it comes to the Falcons and its fan base, for the most part, I don't know that Falcons fans want the heir apparent to Matt Ryan to be another quarterback like Matt Ryan. And maybe that's the wrong attitude to have, but generally speaking, that's the sense that I get from talking to people in our comment section. Jeremiah's prediction that Fromm would be welcome to Atlanta because of the kind of quarterback that he is, were that to go down, I don't think that'd be the case.
Well, in my opinion, I understand where Falcons fans would say we don't want a guy like Matt Ryan, somewhat what they call him a game manager. He doesn't have a strong arm. You know what I'm saying? He has all the leadership qualities. But listen, I'll tell you the biggest thing why you don't want them to get Jake Fromm. Listen, from day one, these dog fans, these folks in Georgia, they're going to be screaming, he's ready. And remember, anytime you bring in a guy like that, when you bring a backup that they're saying could be a guy in the future, you've basically the clock is ticking. Can you imagine if you put Jake Fromm behind Matt Ryan? Man, it becomes the worst experience for, let's just be honest, it becomes a public relations nightmare. Listen, it's the gift for Georgia fans, and this, for Jake Fromm, everybody's going to love it. Like, a lot of people love it, but it's the curse, because what's going to be the narrative? When is he ready?
Yeah,
Matt Ryan is the clock ticking.
Well, I think that's true, and I think that Dimitroff, even this week, one of the things that he addressed, you can go to the AJC Falcons News Now Facebook page and see the full press conference from Dimitroff earlier in the week. But one of the things that he addressed is how much athleticism has come to mean something in the quarterback position. Look at the night that Jalen Hurts, for instance, had last night. Look at the way that Justin Herbert, the former Oregon quarterback, probably performed better in the athletic skills that were measured than maybe some people would have expected him to. I still think that Matt Ryan is the solution for Atlanta at the quarterback position, and I think he probably will be for the next couple of years. And I think Falcons fans who think the opposite, frankly, I think they're probably wrong. However, I don't think it's necessarily wrong to say once Ryan's tenure in Atlanta is done, whether it's 2 years from now, 3 years from now, however long it is, once that tenure is done, saying, why don't we try to have one of the more athletic quarterbacks that we see so in vogue around the rest of the NFL NFL. If a Falcon fan felt that way, I don't necessarily think they're wrong. I think Ryan's the best quarterback you have right now, the best option available to you. But if you want your next quarterback to be something different than what Jake Fromm brings to the table, I don't think a Falcon fan is wrong for necessarily feeling that way.
No, I don't think so, because I think the NFL is about now, right? There are a lot of quarterbacks that have been able to move and leave the pocket. But to me, when you look at two of the last three quarterbacks that won the Super Bowl, Foles and Tom Brady, they're not exactly Michael Vick in the pocket.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So, but I do understand, and I think a lot of it has to do with Matt Ryan's perception as not being a great athlete, not being able to run out of the pocket. So I look at it like this. I want the quarterback that best fits a championship quarterback for my team, right?
Yeah.
Because look, Lamar Jackson fit perfect with this team. Look, it was a running team. That's what they're trying to be. That was their identity. The Falcons are a passing team. So, listen, I know Lamar Jackson had some incredible games, but I think if you put him back there under the center and he's throwing, whatever it is the Falcons threw, I think, 60-something% of the time last year throughout the season. I know that because I was kind of looking up last night for something else. So I decided,
Chuck's been doing some stats.
I decided to do a big Willie.
He's ready to razzle dazzle with some stats today.
And it just happened to fit. But, look, I like Jake Fromm a lot more than anyone else. And to me, I think he's going to be a fine quarterback. But, man, listen, let me clarify something real quick. And I'm not saying when I'm talking about Jake Fromm as far as a quarterback here, the curse, because it becomes a public relations nightmare. Yeah. It's great for the Georgia fan. Right. It'd be divided. Right. The Falcons nation would be divided if you brought Jake Fromm, because think about the pressure now. Think about every day, with Georgia. And Georgia fans, listen, man, Georgia fans going to ride with Jake Fromm.
But if you want to draft the Georgia player in the first round that people really want, you got to draft DeAndre Swift. Well, and listen, this is not me criticizing Fromm. I'm just saying, but Swift would be more universally celebrated as a good pick than, and we're talking about not first round, obviously, if you ever talk about a Jake Fromm, but Swift would be more welcomed. And the reason why I bring that up is AtlantaFalcons.com had a report this week. Falcons have reportedly interviewed 13 running backs in the combine. Swift wasn't one of them.
What?
Like, if you want to bring in somebody people are going to like and celebrate, Swift as a draft pick is going to be more celebrated in that sense than what Jake Fromm would be.
The reason why, because you look at the history of the game right now. I mean, the last few years, nobody's taking running backs in the first round like that. You know what I'm saying? So I love Swift, and I think it would be. See, my thing is, I don't have a problem with the 16 because it's instant impact. Big playmaker, a guy who has a capability to be a 1,000-yard receiver in his first year. But edge, all right. If I'm Thomas Dimitroff, they say, "Hey, TD, what you gonna get this year?" Edge. Hey, Dan Quinn, what do you think will help, you get a new contract? Edge. Yeah. I mean, they got to find a way to get an edge, or this is deep. You got to take a chance. This is the kind of deal where they're at, but also we'll talk about this later about how free agency also could help them get an edge.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. We're actually going to hear from both Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff on today's show about the subject of a pass rusher and the Falcons' need there. And both guys were very, very clear in that being something Atlanta needs to do. Chuck, while we're on the topic of the combine, moving off Jake Fromm here for a little bit, what else kind of jumped out at you this week? I know you've been watching things closely. It's obviously ongoing. Speaking of DeAndre Swift, he'll perform later on this evening. As someone who kind of has helped design a lot of the drills that are being done this week and help train guys to get ready for the combine, what have you noticed about the combine? What are the storylines that have mattered to you?
Well, let me tell you a couple of things that matter to me that stand out. And this is two of them I want to talk about. Number one, the NFL's added a lot of drills now. I love the wide receiver drills and things that they've added in to make, to show a little more skill level, to make it a little tougher and kind of updated. The NFL Combine's still trapped in the old days, man. We're still in the prehistoric era when it comes to NFL, when it comes to the Combine. That really stood out. And next, we talk about, we know what the situation is. We're going to talk about Hooper now and the whole deal with the Falcons. If the Falcons are going to get another tight end in the draft, this ain't the draft. Right. This was the weakest group of tight ends, ever. I mean, they couldn't move the sled. They couldn't catch. Guess what has happened? All them basketball players, all them dudes who was playing basketball, all the wide receivers that become pumped up, juiced up, they can't block. They're soft. All they are is pumped up receivers. They're like Evander Holyfield. Listen, the tight ends now are like Evander Holyfield. They're pumped up cruiserweights. They're little dudes who get swole up, but you know what I'm saying? But they're not as tough as Evander. The tight ends, y'all absolutely embarrassed yourself. There's not a, listen, so if the Falcons going to get a tight end, he won't be no blocker. Tell you that right now.
That is a strong statement from guy Chuck Smith. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Miller Lite, the official beer of the Atlanta Falcons. It tastes great at just 96 calories. We're live at the 38th Annual Atlanta International Auto Show. Chuck and I both got a chance to be inside a little earlier. You want to talk about unbelievable automobile selection. A great chance, if you're looking to buy a car or a truck or an SUV this year, driving from like lot to lot across the city of Atlanta can take a lot of time, but all the greatest new makes and models are all inside. Right across from where I am right now is where they are. Tickets just $12. They're discounted tickets for kids, 5 and under free. GoAutoShow.com. You can find out a lot more about that. Let me get a few comments here, and then we'll hear from Dimitrov on the subject that Chuck was bringing up about what's going to happen with Austin Hooper and the rest of the free agents here. Toddy Jones says we're not drafting Swift, which is why we didn't interview him. We're not drafting a running back in the first round. But, Toddy, here's my pushback to you on that. You know who else is not going to draft a certain position? Probably Washington not drafting a quarterback. But do you know what Washington did reportedly during the NFL Combine this week? Met with both Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa. This is a team that drafted Dwayne Haskins last year and almost for sure going to draft Chase Young this year. And they still took the due diligence to meet with Tagovailoa, to meet with Burrow. I think that's what you do. I think you put yourself in the best position by meeting with as many people as you can. If you're already meeting with 13 running backs, why not take the next step and meet with the best running back available?
Well, it's all about gamesmanship, Brandon. Teams play games, they say they're going to do this, but then they do that. So part of it is kind of, keeping your hands close. Because, listen, the other NFL teams, they're monitoring what teams do. Listen, this is a big-time business. So it's a lot of gamesmanship in it, but the Falcons not interviewing him has nothing to do if they're going to draft him. Because I can just tell you this right now. If there's anybody that the Falcons know a lot about who they don't need to interview, is guess who? Swift.
That's pretty interesting.
What? Dan Quinn is friends with who? Kirby. I just got a little feeling that they know everything they need to do about Swift, and it comes with, number one, he's 40 miles from here.
Yeah.
And a matter of fact, Dan Quinn lives in Sewanee, so he's about 38 miles from Swift. It's a whole connection they got with Dan Quinn. So that's not an indicator if they're going to draft this guy.
On Facebook, Nick McDermott says we got to get an edge rusher in the first round, an edge in free agency, and grab the best available cornerback in round 2. I will say that listening to both Quinn and Dimitrov talk, and as I said before, you'll hear them both today on AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite from the Atlanta International Auto Show. You'll hear from both of them on today's show. You really get the sense that if Atlanta's not going edge rusher over that first pick, they're putting up a giant smokescreen, because there is, from both the relevant parties, Quinn and Dimitrov, and really the lion's share of fans, there's so much talk about that edge rusher. I guess the only way that could end up being different is if a guy like Javon Kinlaw somehow weirdly fell to 16, which I don't think he will do. That might change the scenario. If somehow A.J. Epinesa ends up being drafted before Atlanta gets to pick at 16, maybe that changes the scenario. But barring an unforeseen circumstance, it's becoming more and more difficult to see Atlanta not take that edge rush with the 16th pick. So much buzz about that this week in Indianapolis.
Well, I agree with you here, because think about it. That's why I'm just telling you, as much as I'm starting to look at this, LSU chasing is, to me, almost looking like the guy. They're going to draft him a little high. You know what I'm saying? To me, that would be a little high, but he's going to be the best available edge rusher. So a lot of times, like I said, teams, they overdraft for edge rusher. You got to. And it comes down to one simple point. Well, let's say 2 simple points. Number one, Takk McKinley. He's injured, hasn't shown right now that he is even a productive pass rusher. Number 2, I can't even say number 2 because there is no other edge rusher. I was trying to get to number 2. They just got rid of number 2. So there is no number 2. So them 2 points only got to 1, because we got to get an edge rusher, because we ain't got but 1. That's Takk McKinley.
Let me get this comment. Julian Red talking about Clavon Chason and edge, and then he says, how about A.J. Terrell, the defensive back? So I'm going to give you the job of being the GM, and much like Dan Quinn, who's been kind of in previous years in control of the 53-man roster. If it comes down to A.J. Epinesa and Clavon Chason, you only can choose one of those 2. You're taking the big guy who's maybe not so likely to be a bust. You're taking the dynamic athlete who has people questioning some of the intangibles. You're taking Chason, you're taking Epinesa.
I'm taking Chason.
I am too.
I'm taking Chason because it's all about the rush. He has some limitations. He's not a guy that's going to play down him as a 4-point, as a defensive end. But I don't care even if this kid gets 2 downs a series. We need an edge rusher that can come off the corner so he can, I want to see smoke coming off for tackles. I don't want to see an in-and-out guy who's somewhat, he plays a little in. He's really supposed to be out. No, I don't like that. I want the edge guy that can come in and come off the corner and really become the pass rusher we need.
I like Alex Alonso's question on Facebook, who says, hold on, let me get this. This is a good one. He says, how long do y'all want to stack the offense and not take care of the defense through the draft? That's a relevant question, and I think there's a legitimate answer, at least to me. Now, the honest truth is most of the people who are watching us right now don't agree with me on this, so different people, Alex, will give you a different answer. But you say, how long do you want to work on trying to stack this offense? My answer to that question would be until this team starts scoring 30 points again. Like, that's what I would do. I would work, try to get this team back in that 30-point-a-game range. 34 is about what this team averaged when it won the NFC back in 2016. That's what my goal would be this offseason if I was the Falcons GM. I don't think that's what they're going to do, though. I think they do feel like now they've spent all they can spend in both draft capital and dollars on the offensive side of the ball, and I think they're ready to work on defense. So, Alex, I think you're going to get your wish, but if you want me to answer your question legitimately, that's how I would answer it. I'd keep working on offense until I started scoring 30 points a game again.
Listen, the offense, we don't need to worry about offense right now. They have been, listen, you got Julio, you got offensive linemen, you got, well, you can fill in at the running back, right? You got receivers, you got a quarterback who's the MVP. We got to go defense. Now, we got Devondre Campbell, who might not be there, which I hope they sign back. We got the edge situation, we got the corner situation, and nobody's talking about the safety situation with Keanu Neal. Yeah. Again, I'm praying he comes back. But look, if I'm the GM, I got to prepare for him not coming back, excuse me, and be that same guy. By
the way, on Facebook, Scott Hunter mentions Albert O. I'm going to butcher his last name. If I even try to say it, I'm not going to. The big guy from Missouri. He's about 260 pounds as a tight end. Ran a sub-4.6 40 last night. I don't know if he can block or not at the NFL level, but that's a pretty premier athlete. And certainly his combine performance, if you look like you might be in the market for a new tight end, and the indications are Atlanta will be, a guy like Albert O coming out of Missouri is going to turn some heads.
Okay, Albert O. How about who just talked about Albert O? Can you still find him?
Let's see. It's over here.
Well, matter of fact, who talked about Albert O?
I've lost it now.
How about that? I want somebody out there that's watching us right now on YouTube or Facebook. Why don't you send me Albert O's stats? I see a lot of guys killing at the combine. I need to know what.
But most tight ends don't put up big stats in college, though. You'd be hard pressed to find that many, unless you played at Iowa or like Penn State or Michigan, one of these Big Ten schools.
I need to see numbers. I need to see touchdowns. Look, it ain't like Missouri wasn't throwing the ball. Derek Dooley was. Oh well. They all got canned. Well, look.
But, listen, O.J. Howard's killing it in Tampa Bay. He didn't catch nothing in
O.J. Howard is not killing it in Tampa Bay.
He's had a good career.
But he didn't hardly play this year.
He's hurt or something.
Look, but I'm going to tell you this. The Falcons don't need to work. Listen, the Falcons need to bring in a free agent tight end. Listen, a UFA that's drafted. Listen, this is the worst group of tight ends I think I've ever seen. I watched them. Listen, they couldn't even move their sled. They all look like power forwards. You see how Trey Young, listen, the tight ends this year built like Trey Young. Not as shot as you, Trey, but, they kind of skinny, man. It was ridiculous watching them tight ends.
Let me do a couple YouTubes, then we're going to hear from Thomas Dimitroff. Rocky Ramsey says, Chaseon's going to shine in Atlanta, so he likes the idea of making that pick. Living with Prince says, how long do we have to deal with Matt Ryan? I'm just telling you, we started the show talking about what Atlanta wants to see in its next quarterback post Matt Ryan. But I'm just going to tell you right now, you should not be in a hurry to wish away the Matt Ryan era here in Atlanta. Keep this in mind. In 4 combined playoff matchups against all-time franchise quarterbacks like Aaron Murray and Russell Wilson, Ryan's 3-1 in those games. Right. He's beat Wilson twice. He beat Rodgers once head-to-head. Did lose to Rodgers in the divisional round game a couple of years ago. This guy 3-1 lifetime in his playoff career against Wilson and Rodgers. That's a guy that you can still trust as a franchise quarterback. And as Chuck said, pocket passers like Phillip Rivers and Tom Brady, they're still going to command a good bit here in this offseason. The idea that the NFL has sunset on Matt Ryan, and I think we're far from that.
Man, I can't even believe we see him talking about that. Man, we got so many holes. Matt Ryan is the last thing that y'all need to be worrying about. I need y'all to get off the Matt Ryan back, man. I need y'all to just back up right now. We got so many holes, that ain't going to change, okay? Now, let's just move on, but I understand what you're saying. But we got way more holes than Matt Ryan. And to me, listen, I hadn't said this actually in 2 weeks. Y'all going to hold Matt Ryan hostage and he ain't got no O-line? So y'all beat Matt up, then y'all know we ain't got no O-line. Come on, don't make no sense. Now, let me just throw that. Go ahead, I'm going to throw that. In a second, I'm going to give you my my 3-round Falcon picks that are surefire to help the Falcons get to the Super Bowl.
We will do that coming up in a moment. We're live here at the Atlanta International Auto Show at the Georgia World Congress Center. Building seats where it's at. Go autoshow.com to find out more about your tickets. They're just $12 for adults, even cheaper than that for kids. So it's a great thing for you and your family to do here this week. Go autoshow.com. For now, let's get a chance to hear from Falcons General Manager Thomas Dimitroff, who this past week in Indianapolis addressed the situation with Devondre Campbell, the free agent linebacker, Austin Hooper, the free agent tight end. Dimitroff drawing a line in the sand saying, we're going to let these guys go out and see what they can get somewhere else, and then we'll make our negotiations known with them. Strong talk for Dimitroff. It's a part of AJC, Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite.
Right. I mean, so right now where we are with Austin and Devondre and Wes Schweitzer, we're those three individuals. We've talked to them. We've had good discussions, and we are, after all is said and done, we're going to let them get to the market to find out where they are in the market. That's a really important piece for both parties. Of course, we want them back, and we'll continue to negotiate with those players. But it's imperative that we see what the market holds for them. So that'll gauge how we approach it. As you know, we have a salary cap situation that we're monitoring closely, and that's important for us to know exactly where we feel the market is before we make any very solid offers and discussions, as far as making agreements on compensation.
Was there a thought to use the franchise tag on either of those things?
I think we talk about franchise tags, of course. It's part of a discussion. We haven't made any decisions on that at all, but it's still in consideration.
Thomas, how do you think about the running backs you guys currently have behind Devontae Freeman, Brian Hill, Ito? What's your evaluation of those guys? Do you think that you have many of those guys play here in the same?
Yeah, I mean, our running back situation, we've worked hard on putting together a group of guys that we think complement each other. They have versatility. We have a bigger guy in Q, of course. We drafted him 228 to 230. That was important. We have Ito Smith, who obviously moves around really well and has really good cutback ability, and Brian Hill, the way that he continues to thrive and grow and catch the ball better and better all the time, along with Free. We feel like we have a really good pool of players there, and we'll continue to look. Doesn't prevent us from looking, of course, in the draft and free agency in that area, but we know how important the run game is in this league. We know how important it is for our offense to thrive, so we'll always continue to be very mindful of that. There's a good value in the draft, and I think there's a good value other places. So in my mind, it doesn't always mean that you have to go in the top 15, 16 picks of the draft, but if something presents itself, of course, there are opportunities there.
Where do you see that value as far as the running backs? How far down?
Well, I think this draft is strong, like I do in receivers in that area, where you can get some very valuable football players at a very good value who can come into your organization. We've had some success with that with running backs in the past, as have a lot of teams. So I think it's good, and I think it's solid for sure from a depth standpoint.
So good stuff there from Thomas Dimitroff, the Falcons general manager. And, Chuck, we sort of even suggested this is what Atlanta should do. Now Dimitroff says they're going to do that. To Austin Hooper, Devondre Campbell, we're going to let some organization outside of our own set the market. Now, for me, I don't think that means that necessarily either one of these two guys won't be back here in Atlanta again. I just think they're going to let some other team dictate the terms of how the negotiating begins. And frankly, I think that's smart on the part of Dimitroff. And I say that as someone who really wanted Atlanta to re-sign Austin Hooper. But you'd be a fool to negotiate against yourself, setting up free agent contract that you may even have to best.
Right.
Let somebody else start the market on this and then decide if you want to match that. In this case, you have to be tough in negotiations sometimes. I actually think Dimitroff is choosing a smart time to get tough.
Well, I think he's getting tough, and I understand it from a business standpoint with the Atlanta Falcons. But you got to look at it from the player standpoint. Players look at this somewhat as, they don't want me. A little bit of disrespect, and this new generation now, when I played them OG dudes, they was like, hey, it's just business. But these young boys, they're emotional. I'm just telling you, all of them. So to me, it's good and it's bad, but it's bad because these guys are going to say, you know what, they didn't necessarily want me, and they're going to try to find a better situation. Don't be surprised, too. Let somebody from near their hometown or their favorite team get to them, you know what I mean? So setting a market like this and basically saying, hey, we don't want you. Basically, they're saying we don't want you.
Yeah.
I mean, what else is it saying?
Well, no, I think you're.
I'm just saying. What's your opinion?
What my opinion is.
Yeah.
You ever go to the bank when you're a kid and you get a lollipop? You ever do that? They ever give you a lollipop?
I still get it.
Okay, so Arthur Blank gives out lifetime contracts the way that the bank gives out lollipops. So if you're telling me that Austin Hooper, Devondre Campbell comes away with a little taste of, hey, this team doesn't really want me. I hate to be this way, but Atlanta's got to start giving off that vibe a little bit more. I think the Falcons have been too much of a pushover in negotiations. Julio Jones is one of the great Falcons of all time, but Atlanta laid down in that contract negotiation, and they hurt themselves because of that. So I think you do have to be a little tougher in these negotiations. This is what kind of stings about being a salary cap league where every dollar matters. You can't make people feel loved all the time because you got to protect your bottom line. So Hooper and Campbell, I need to find out how much other teams love you before I tell you how much I love you. It's not, look, you know, it's not show friends, it's show business, and this is just the way the business goes.
And I understand the business, but there's two sides to the business.
Yeah.
There's the other side. I'm just telling you, these players, they got 31 other teams out there. Yeah, the Falcons, it's tough love by the Falcons, but they're going to love them up with the other 31 teams.
Yeah.
Austin Hooper, now let's look at it like this. There were some challenges. You've never got to see how good he is with the Falcons. You haven't. So if I'm Devondre Campbell, I'm testing the waters because, listen, there's going to be more money out there. If it looks like the way the Falcons are approaching this, I think both of those guys are going to be gone. I'd be surprised. Now, this all I say is this. Hooper, to me, is gone. I've been looking at all the stuff that people were talking about, kind of feeling the climate.
He kind of gave you a little bit of a peace out on Instagram.
Yeah,
he
I believe Hooper gone. Because listen, somebody going to jump on Hooper.
Yeah.
Devondre, some tells me that Devondre could be a good fit here, and he's going to come. He's going to make money, and he's going to be rich beyond his beliefs. But I feel comfortable that they really like Devondre probably more than like Hooper because that's Dan's guy. Dan's a defensive guy.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. I don't have a good sense of what the market even is for Campbell right now, but we've seen a lot of like published reports about Austin Hooper commanding $13 million per year, something like that. I've told you a million times, I want to see Atlanta re-sign Hooper, but at that price, I'd call his bluff.
I want 10. You get 10 from me, Hoop.
Yeah.
What about 10 million?
Even at that right now, I'm starting to wonder if you can't call his bluff on that a little bit.
Listen, the only way I don't get Hooper again is I'm going for this edge guy. Or I'm signing Devondre Campbell, and then I'm getting a second-tier pass rusher. I'm big on getting the defense. I'd rather have Devondre and sign, I don't know, a Robert Quinn or, a Yannick or anybody like that. But how about this, though? Robert Quinn is burning hot now. Man, Robert Quinn's about to get money.
Yeah.
I'm just saying about, the Falcons.
Those people like us who kind of do this for a living, we talk about these guys so much that by the time you really get to the chance to put the signature on the bottom line, there's so much hype out there that a guy like Quinn has gone from being a little bit of an under the radar, hey, that might be a pretty good bargain in free agency. All of a sudden now it's like it's trying to like buy one of these McLarens inside this Atlanta International Auto Show. All of a sudden now the market's kind of heated up because he's been sort of praised as being kind of under the radar so much. All of a sudden now he ain't on the radar anymore.
No, he's not on the radar. So that's what makes TD and Dan Quinn under the radar. I mean, literally on the hot seat for getting a pass rusher. So let's remember, there were pass rushers that were rookies last year that got double-digit sacks.
Yeah.
And it can be done. It's just a matter of this is where the scouting. Listen, that's one thing we haven't talked enough about. I don't think anyone, when we look at the big picture of this Falcons regime, we know what TD's involved in. We know what everybody's involved in. Where's the scouting? Who's the scouting department? Who's the head of all? So to me, those are the guys that you got to get it right this time. You got to find an edge rusher in the draft because it looks like we might not be able to get the guy we want in free agency.
J.B. Brumfield says no Austin Hooper. He wants to use that money on Dante Fowler instead. Blake Robinson said he thinks the Washington Redskins want Austin Hooper. Could very well be the case. Also, an interesting disagreement here. Johnny Tiller says that Devondre Campbell was just okay last year, whereas Jordan 9308 says Campbell was our leading tackler. When you look at pivotal part of the Falcons defense or just okay, which side of that are you on when it comes to Campbell? Just okay, or the kind of guy you can't live without?
I say he's the kind of guy that can get better.
Well, you running for president now?
No, what do you mean? I got to be real. I think get better. Look, man, Devondre Campbell's still trying to shut the receiver down right now. Man, they had
There's
so
some
much
of that,
time. Listen,
for sure.
they had so much time to throw the ball back there. Nobody can cover a receiver that long. And if you look at a lot of times, Devondre's still covering, still covering, still covering. You ain't got again. All these guys are being judged. To me, it's hard to judge these guys. Look, you had no pass rush. The first 7 games, 6 games in a row, we had no sacks. Think about this from a historical, legendary thing that happened for the Falcons. How can you cover anyone and you have no rush?
Yeah.
Devondre Campbell is going to be a great player, and he's a better player than what it indicated. Because think about this. Our Pro Bowlers, a guy that we love, Jones, Debo.
Yeah.
People now saying, well, he didn't have quite the season. You ain't got no run stuffers. You ain't got nothing. Devondre Campbell, you need to bring back, and you might not. Like I told you, I got the way to do it. Move Devondre to middle linebacker.
Yeah.
Move Debo to the outside. Debo runs a 4-3, right? Deion Jones runs a 4-3.
Yeah.
Devondre is a 4-5. People forget. Devondre Campbell at Minnesota was a middle linebacker. Played a lot of inside linebackers. Just because he's 6'4", don't mean he can't do it. I just think it's just me. I'm putting a fast guy who can cover, and I'm switching up and making a drastic change.
Chuck mentioned the Falcons need to upgrade pass rush. We'll tell you in a moment what Dan Quinn had to say about that this week. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. We're live at the Atlanta International Auto Show. And don't forget, if you want the best up-to-date coverage on everything that's happened in Indianapolis this week and everything Atlanta's doing heading towards the draft, our buddy D-Led was there on the scene for the Combine this week. Become an AJC subscriber. Go to subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now, and you can stay up to date and get all the Falcons news delivered right there to you. Whether it's the e-paper that shows up on your laptop or your phone or anything else, you want Sunday home delivery, sit around like Chuck does, bathrobe,
right.
coffee cup, slippers on, reading
That's
the
real.
paper, doing all that, you can do that. Or 7-day home delivery, you can get that as well. Cancel anytime. I normally have my cooler with me to show you. I didn't bring my cooler here today, but by now you've seen it if you watched the show before. The point is, go to subscribe.ajc.com/Falcons News Now and become an AJC subscriber. Speaking of D-Led, D-Led was on hand to talk to Falcons coach Dan Quinn. The subject comes up of what Atlanta really needs here as we head towards the draft. Pass rush was one of those considerations, and there was another position also on defense that Quinn spoke prominently about. Enjoy that right now. We're live here at the Georgia World Congress Center for the Atlanta International Auto Show. It's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite.
There's a couple of positions you better always have enough. And so that's the pass rushing and guys who can play outside and guard and defend at corner. And so those two positions, although they're a lot different, you better have both of them, because how do you play better on third down and how do you play better against the passing game? You have rush to affect the quarterback, and you also have ways to match up and deny guys, when you get your chances. So those two positions specifically, guys who interior can rush, on the edges can rush, corners who can match up outside and inside, like always part of the conversation. And then at offensive line, I think you better dig that way too, because of the volume of them. And some players are going to plug in and play. We did that a little bit this year. And some are going to be building for tomorrow and for the next one. How can we develop? And I think in a year's time, this is what we could get. So those are, two examples of things I hope that we talk about all the time.
Coach, Thomas said that Cooper, Campbell, and Spicer were going to tomorrow. Are you concerned that they're not able to get tomorrow?
Well, I think there's a lot of things going on now, and I think you guys are all in tune with it too, in terms of the CBA and the agreement, how that affects a number of things as you're planning down the road. But the three of those guys that you spoke about, with Hoop and Dre at the front of it, they've had a significant role on our team, over the last few years. You talk about the amount of tackles for Devondre and 75 catches or so, even with Hoop missing a few games. So knowing how to feature players in their specific roles, that's important. And so how do you get them? Sometimes it's from within your own team. You've developed somebody, you drafted somebody, you're ready to do that. Sometimes you get the chance to re-sign those guys and, stay in the current role, or whether it's draft or free agency. So the good news is they're still in the conversations, with the team. But a lot, will be decided, over the next month, really.
So in our comment section, Lisa Shepard reacting to what Dan Quinn had to say there about the pass rush and everything else, kind of reminding us also there was the weird debate this week seemingly between Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitroff about the future of Takk McKinley, the fifth-year option, and the fact that for a while it seemed like Dimitroff and Quinn weren't on the same page about that. ultimately, Chuck, I think this is another example of.
I never saw that. Can you?
Yeah. So
give me
basically,
a
what
little more
happened
detail?
is that there was a dispute about whether or not Atlanta's going to pick up that fifth-year option on McKinley. You have to pick it up before the fourth year begins if you're going to do so. Ultimately, Dan Quinn said they were not going to do that, and then backtracked because Thomas Dimitroff said they hadn't yet decided yet. First of all, it's a little un-Falcon-like not to pick up these things. So many other draft picks have sort of rubber-stamped and had their fifth-year options picked up. So a little bit interesting the fact that Atlanta's even deliberating not doing this with McKinley, and yet ultimately it seems that's the direction Atlanta's going to go here, and I would argue with good reason, just given the limited amount of success that McKinley's enjoyed thus far. This, to me, feels like whether this is the influence of Rich McKay or whomever,
right.
Atlanta kind of playing a little tougher. Not everybody gets the fifth-year option. Not everybody gets the big contract extension. We're going to make you sing for your supper on the field. If this is the way that McKinley's being treated by this organization now, I would say it's about time Atlanta started talking a little tougher when it comes to things like this.
Well, I like that, and I understand what you're saying as far as Tack McKinley right now. Tack, he hadn't earned the right to even feel like he's going to get that money. Really, from the way Tack has played right now so far, he's one of them guys that you say, when you get to that fifth year, that option, we're not going to give it to you. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But let me just say this, a good example. I got a client that I've had for a long time, Bud Dupree.
Oh, yeah.
Wilcox County, plays with Pittsburgh for 4 years at Wilco. 4 years with the Pittsburgh Steelers. People beat him up. He never became what they thought he was going to be.
Out of Kentucky, right?
Out of Kentucky. He was getting, having a solid career, 6, 7, 8 sacks. But, the Holy Grail, that's 10 sacks. So Bud plays all these years. In that last year, he kind of the last couple years, he started putting it together. Getting better, getting close to 10 sacks. His last year, he goes for 10. He develops and it looks like he's on that next step. So now, the Steelers, he's a free agent, so they're in somewhat of a interesting situation. But basically what I'm saying, it can happen. You know what I'm saying? But then the decision is, was this just a one-year thing?
Yeah.
Or is this something that can last? So, Tack's, I've seen it happen and benefit a guy like Tack, but you'll see a lot of people that get to be Vic Beasley and it doesn't work out.
And by the way, that was just a one-year thing. That's the big question you have to answer when it comes to Dante Fowler. Now, Fowler is not just a one-year guy, but the year he had most recently, far outsized in excess of what he's done in any year prior to that in his NFL career. What about the idea? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I watched his moves. Fowler got moves. And to me, I just watched him. I feel really comfortable with him.
What about the idea of what Quinn also brings up there, which is the cornerback situation? We would think of, from a defensive standpoint, the pass rush being the most important need for Atlanta. But how about what Quinn also talks about the need to continue to upgrade that cornerback spot? Continue to think Desmond Trufant's time in Atlanta may be about done. There have been rumors and reports that Atlanta considered trading him along with Devontae Freeman last season. Certainly, cornerback is another one of those spots that Atlanta really seems to have its eye on.
Well, we got to find some people that can cover. In this game now, everybody listen, the ball's coming out faster. You got to have cornerbacks that are smart and that can react faster. The quick twitch part of the cornerback position now has become really important. That's what I see. Desmond Trufant, they don't have that little jitter. That quick to also make plays. But I think the Falcons are right. Isn't Trufant number 21?
I don't know people's numbers.
Is Trufant 21?
I don't know numbers.
Okay, I'm just trying to check. Somebody hit us up on that. I should already know that. Look it up, Des, my coach over there, Desmond Trufant. If he's 21, if he is, I'm ashamed, man. Shame on him for rocking the prime time's number. Shame. Listen,
that's a tough one to live up to.
They're killing the legacy of the great cornerbacks here.
That's a tough one to live up to.
Bruce Pickens from the old days?
Oh, yeah.
Just saying.
That's a tough one to live up to.
20 what? I was wrong.
All right, so
I'm wrong.
it's AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. We're live here at the Georgia World Congress Center for the Atlanta International Auto Show. Don't forget, this is a great place to be this weekend. Come on by and go autoshow.com to find out about that. In addition to all the really cool brand new trucks and SUVs and cars that are out there, you can also see some special attractions. Cousin Eddie's RV from the Christmas Vacation movie. Caffeine and Octane's got some exotic vehicles here. There's all kinds of stuff to see. There's some classic vehicles. I saw Denny Hamlin's number 11 NASCAR, the same guy that just won the Daytona 500. His car is inside there. I got a chance to see that. All kinds of fun stuff at the Atlanta International Auto Show. Now,
I saw a Raptor that I like.
Did you really?
About 73 stacks. I need a lot more sacks from my clients.
Yeah.
To afford that.
You got to get some more sacks going on the field. That's a pretty nicely priced vehicle there.
Yep.
Something else that Falcons fans really enjoy is a chance, as we said before, to upgrade that pass rush. You heard Dan Quinn talking about that a moment ago. Before we go on today's show here live from the Georgia World Congress Center, I want you to hear Thomas Dimitroff on this too. Now, in particular, what Dimitroff gets into, even beyond just the need for their pass rusher, he's asked specifically, not AJ Epinesa by name, but Epinesa's college coach Kirk Ferentz. What do you think about the guys that come out of Iowa? Certainly, Dimitroff says those Hawkeyes players, former Hawkeyes, get a little bit of an extra look from him because he views Ferentz to be one of the top coaches in college football. So pretty interesting read into that opportunity when you think about Epinesa potentially being available to Atlanta at 16. So here's more from Thomas Dimitroff on the subject that seemed to dominate Falcons discussions during the Combine, the need to upgrade that pass rush. Thomas Dimitroff talks about that and a whole lot more here as part of AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite.
Yeah, I mean, everyone knows, we talk about it year in and year out about how important that is to affect the passer. Everyone knows that. That's not obviously a mystery. With Vic not coming back, we're going to have to continue to focus in that area, and there are opportunities to do that, whether it's potentially in free agency or in the draft. I like where we are right now with our addition and our adjustments and our D-line coaches, and being able to focus on that and continue to get more and more rush is important for us, and so it's something that we are considering, of course.
What do you think about the Big Ten crop of pass rushers?
The Big Ten, wow. Well, there's one and more who are at close to the top of the ranks there. So, no, there's no question they're producing there. And they provide not only ability to get, what we always say, fly to the quarterback and bend to the quarterback, but also have power to them. And so it is an interesting and good group.
Where do you think those guys, like under Young, where do you think some of those guys fit in?
Well, again, I'm sure there are guys all in that wave that I think. I'm not going to go into specifics on it, of course, but I think that you're going to you can have opportunities to have some good value guys at the Leo position or the DN position. Those guys, where you're speaking about, I mean, those guys are hard-nosed, gritty football players who will get it done, and I think that's a big thing. You watch those guys over the years. Sometimes they're not the most flashy at times, but you can get guys who really produce. We've seen that year in and year out. So, again, I'm excited where we are there. I know we had talked there wasn't a huge Leo draft. I think the more you look at them, I think they're viable candidates all through first, second, and third round in that area.
Speaking of Iowa, you worked with Kirk Ferentz a long time ago in Cleveland, and that he's been able to really produce players who stuck in the league. How's he been able to do that? What kind of players he's looking at?
Yeah, I mean, Coach Ferentz he's obviously a great football coach. He's got a great mind. He's creative with how he uses his players. He's very direct with them. He holds them accountable. He's very disciplined. And so that shows itself when they come into the league. They're ready. We always say that the Iowa players are pro-ready. And, sometimes you look at them and you wonder, okay, where is the upside there? And you know that they have gotten the most out of them at Iowa because of the way Coach Ferentz approaches it. And you know that you're going to have a very solid football player at very least there. And guys are going to play in the league a long time, as we've seen. So those programs are the kind of programs that we all in our league, and I'll speak for most of us, really focus in on, because that's important to have your players ready. It's difficult nowadays on the offensive and defensive line to bring guys in and they're ready like that. That's one of the programs that they're going to be more ready than not.
And you see there on your screen, the Falcons will draft 16th overall in the first round. And those words by Thomas Dimitroff certainly make you think, or at least either intended to or just by accident, that AJ Epinesa is one of those guys. We'll get that long look by the Falcons with that number 16 overall pick. And I guess it kind of comes down to, will he still be there? Will he still be available? Does it end up being what so much of the mock draft speculation has been, a Chason versus Epinesa type decision for Atlanta? It's amazing how much of a consensus seems to be growing around that.
Yeah, you're right. And I think, listen, after the first pick with second pick with Chase Young, top defensive lineman on the board, I think this is a challenged group this year. This isn't, to me, like it was last year, a dominant group of pass rushers. You know what I mean? You could find big guys, you could find small guys. I just think the Falcons are going to have to overdraft, because to me, Epinesa and the Chason kid, to me, those are guys in any other draft, they're 20 plus. I mean, they're 20 back if they were in last year's draft. I just think it's going to, be a big decision for the Falcons.
A big decision that we'll look forward to previewing a lot in the days ahead. We'll be back on Monday from our friendly studios, the friendly confines of our AJC Falcons News Now, presented by Miller Lite Studios. It's been fun to be out here at the Atlanta International Auto Show this weekend. Chuck, I hope you have a great weekend.
Yep, plan to.
I hope all of you do there as well. We'll talk a lot more Falcons draft with you on Monday, a lot more about the direction of this team when it comes to free agency. There are some very big unanswered questions on the horizon. We'll learn more and get a chance to answer those. Thanks for the great comments. We'll look forward to chatting with you again on Monday and Friday, of course, is again every Monday and Friday at 1 p.m. for AJC Falcons News Now, sponsored by Miller Lite. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll look forward to talking to you then.